The death is only to your body, as I'm saying. There are three parts of you. Sthula, Sukshma and Karana. Sthula Sharira gets disintegrated into its 5 elements, but your Sukshma Sharir and Karana Sharir, subtle body and the causal body, is not lost.
Why then does the Sukshma Sharira, why doesn't that decay and go back into the 5 elements that was made from?
Why do you ask me such difficult questions? Namaste. My name is Bidhan. 2012 is when I chanced upon Upanishads, and it had a profound impact on my life. Since then, I have dreamt to bring the key aspects of Upanishads in a manner which is simple, relatable, and implementable in our daily lives. So here we are with a set of videos to make spirituality simple. So Preeti, we are back again on the discussions of karma. I really can't believe that we have already done somewhere around 7 to 8 episodes only on karma.
And I know there's more to go. And I'm so sorry if I'm asking you too many questions and like making it very long. But that brings me to that first question, which I left with in our last conversation, right? We said, I understand that karma is an action which has an outcome, right? But we also spoke about that we are all one and there is no other. Then where is the question of someone doing and then having an outcome for that?
So you're asking if everything is non-dual, then how come there is an individual karma?
Yeah.
Isn't it what you're asking? So if everything is non-dual, there is no questioner and there are no questions. Why are you even asking me this?
What? Now you can't just mince my words like that and say no question. I don't know. What does that even mean?
See, what you're asking me is that we discussed that everything is one, right? So if everything is one, there is no separate you and there is no separate me.
Exactly.
So there cannot be any karma. And plus, if everything is Brahman, and Brahman is all pervading, it is limitless,
Changeless.
changeless,
I remember this, yes.
then how can karma be present? Because karma means change. So everything is changeless. If Brahman is changeless, then how can there be karma in the first place? So there is absolutely no karma.
Yeah, why are we even talking about karma? I mean, honestly, it's slightly confusing, right?
Because we are jumping the gun. We are trying to go right to the highest teaching of Upanishads, understanding non-duality, understanding those Mahavakyas without getting our basics right. So it is important we go step by step before we reach to the final question that you're asking, that how can individual karma exist when there is no individuality?
Right. So can you like simplify this a little bit?
Yeah, that's what we're here for. We'll try and make this simple. And all those who are viewing this video, thank you so much. And if you want to be a part of our workshops, go ahead, put your name in the link which is given in the description below. We'll get back to you as soon as we are going to start our next workshop. Back to you, Preeti. So if you really want that answer, let's go in a slightly structured manner. Let us first understand the self a little bit more deeper. What are the various aspects of self? What is Jiva? And why, if everything is one, we feel there is a difference between me and this entire world. So let us again try and engage with a set of questions and answers to understand what we are saying. So tell me, when you think a person is dead?
Dead. Like
dead. When a person is dead, when do you call a person has died?
Probably when you stop breathing. I think the person stops breathing, their heart stops beating, and maybe the vital organs are all not functioning anymore. I think that's when you would call a person dead, right?
Okay. So at that point of time, is a person really dead or he is declared dead?
Really dead or declared dead?
Yeah.
What is the difference? Like, what are you saying?
See, generally, when you look at a very clinical approach, we end up saying that when certain physiological systems stops working and there are no chances of revival we call that entity dead.
Right.
That's how we have been looking at it from a very clinical way. But at the same time, if you look at our ancient tradition, specifically if you look at Ayurveda and multiple other ways, they look at body as an instrument through which the prana operates. There is a separate system called prana or panchavayu that operates through the physical entity. And it takes days together for prana to leave the body.
Okay.
Right? So technically speaking, where do you call something dead or someone dead? Because if I were to ask you, Preeti, are you just merely a body?
So I would say maybe I am my body and also all the systems and thoughts, right? Like if I say like my digestive system, my respiratory system, that.
Yeah.
And also my thought patterns and emotions and all.
So let me ask you this question. Do you think the systems that you spoke about, you said you're a body and there's a system and there are thoughts. Do you think this system and thoughts exist separately, independently of the body? What I mean is, can they be present independent even if the body is not present?
My brain is not even processing the question that you're asking. I don't even know what you mean by that.
Coming back to the same point that I was trying to tell you, that from our ancient system, they look at us from a very different perspective. They say that we are made up of 3 layers, that we are made up of 3 bodies, Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira and Karana Sharira. If I were to put it into an English word, it is gross body, subtle body and causal body.
Okay.
Right? So there are 3 bodies that we are made up of. And death only happens to the gross body, Sthula Sharira. So at the time of the death, the Sthula Sharira disintegrates into the elements, 5 elements. However, the Sukshma Sharira or the subtle body and the Karana Sharira continues to exist. And the point I'm trying to make is that there is a separate entity that exists beyond the physical entity, and the point of view of the ancient wisdom is that the physical body is merely an instrument through which the subtle bodies or Sukshma Sharira operates.
So you said that it's mentioned, but where are you getting this reference from?
If you refer to, say, Tattva Bodh, which was written by Sri Shankaracharya, it's a Prakaranam, you can refer to that. And this is also mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, in chapters 2, verse 13, where Shri Krishna says that there is an entity called Dehi. He used the word Dehi, which inhabits the Deha, the body, and experiences the childhood, youth, and old age, and also moves into another body. So there is this Dehi, there is something called, there is a transmigrating entity that moves from one body to another. What is that transmigrating entity as per you? That Dehi, what is that Dehi?
I think in my terms, I would call it the soul or Atma. I mean, the second I say Atma, I know that you're going to pinpoint and say it's wrong. But in layman's, I think that's what I have been taught. Either it's the soul or the Atma.
Fair point. You know for sure that Atma is a wrong answer. Why? Because again in Bhagavad Gita, and Shri Krishna has clearly said that Atma is achala. It cannot move. It is sarvavyapi. It is all pervading. So if something is all pervading, it cannot exist within the body.
And cannot be confined, you're saying?
Yeah, it cannot be confined within the body.
Okay.
Right? And something is achala. It cannot move from one body to another. So the Atma doesn't move from one body to another. It is not possible for Atma to move. And I really don't understand what soul is. It has multiple connotations, so I'm not getting over there. So when it is not the Atma, when it is, I don't know what the soul is, when it is not the Atma that moves from one body to another, then what moves? It is your Sukshma Sharira, subtle body, that moves from one body to another, that is technically mentioned as Dehi, and in various ways in various texts.
So when you're saying various ways, is it right to say that the Sukshma Sharira is what we call as Jiva?
Not exactly, but yeah, I think we will come to Jiva later.
Okay.
But first, let's try and understand this concept of Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, and Karana Sharira. Once we kind of get it, then we will slowly move to understand what Jiva is all about. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So let's talk about the Sthula Sharira, the gross body. So everything that you see that can be perceived becomes a part of your gross body, like your hands, your legs, your hair, even your internal organs, which can be seen, right? Blood, tissues, hormones, at least it can be seen in the microscope. So anything which can be perceived becomes a part of your gross body. It's fairly simple to understand, including your brain. Now let's come to the subtle body, which is Sukshma Sharira. You have thoughts.
Yes.
You have emotions, right? You have beliefs. You have certain energies. Sometimes you feel high with energy. Sometimes you feel drained. So those are the things. Can it be seen?
No.
But can it be felt?
Felt, yeah.
So those systems, those aspects of your being, which can be felt, but cannot be seen, cannot be put under microscope or an experiment, becomes a part of your subtle body.
Right. But even these thoughts and emotions that we said, that what I can feel, it's from the brain only, right?
How do you get so much of a confidence to make that statement? Tell me.
It just feels like a given.
Tell me one scientific journal who goes out and says clearly that there is enough and more data to suggest that all my thoughts and emotions, memories is an epiphenomenon of the neural activities of our brain. That's not right. I was very fortunate to basically learn Vedanta with a group of very senior neurosurgeons. There is no conclusive evidence to this, Preeti, that the thoughts, the mental activities is dependent on the physical brain, right? Okay. There is absolutely, you have to understand there is a difference between causation and correlation. So, let us take help to understand with an example, all right? If you throw a radio, suppose in a desert where people have never seen a radio before, as soon as they switch on the radio, they will hear a music. As soon as they switch off the radio, the music will not come. So what is the inference you will make? Where does the music come from?
From the radio.
Right.
Yeah.
But is the music dependent on that radio? Music waves are present independently there.
Right.
It is expressing itself through the radio. Just because radio is not working does not mean the music is not there. Music is there, but the instrument is faulty and therefore it is not getting expressed.
Okay.
Do you see the difference?
Yeah.
So when you say that the brain leads to thoughts or the brain leads to my mental activity, there is no conclusive proof.
You're saying it's like me thinking that the music is coming from the radio.
Exactly. The music is not coming from the radio. The music is expressing from the radio.
Okay.
The correlation and causation are two different things. Right. Let's be very clear about it. Right?
It's getting expressed through my brain. Wow. Okay.
So your mental activity, a part of your mental activity gets expressed through your brain. Brain is not only the instrument. And from our ancient texts, your brain, your body is a golakam. It is just an instrument through which the subtle body expresses itself.
So the subtle body, that the Sukshma Sharira, which you just mentioned, is it like there's just one subtle body or is it multiple bodies?
Good question. So just like your physical body can be divided into multiple parts,
Right.
right? You can divide into your limbs, your heart, uh, your maybe your circulatory system or skeletal system. There are various ways which you can dissect your physical body. There are 19 parts to the subtle body. They say there are 5 karmendriyanis, 5 jnanendriyanis, 5 pranas, and antahkarana, which has 4 parts, which is called manas, buddhi, chitta, ahankara.
Completely like lost with that. It's so technical what you're talking that I'm just completely lost. I'm sorry.
When I was talking about it, I realized that it was going a little technical, and I thank you for breaking it out. The idea is not to complicate things. We'll try and simplify this right now. To answer your question, is subtle body only one? The answer is no. There are 19 components of the subtle body. We will not go into the each components. That's not the idea. But we'll try and understand how it works. We spoke about, so let's take an example here. How do you see?
With my eyes.
Eyes.
Yeah.
So let us assume that eye is an instrument through which seeing happens. So let us not break these two things separately. The instrument called an eye and a process or perception called seeing. Now what they're saying is that seeing, the ability to see, does not get lost just because eye is not functioning properly. The golakam is not functioning properly.
Right.
If you put say glasses, if you put say lenses, the seeing happens. The seeing is not lost just because the golakam is lost. Do you see this?
Okay.
Right. Similarly, when you're talking about your brain is an instrument through which lot of mental activities gets manifested. Just because there's a damage in the brain does not mean that you have lost your mind.
Okay.
Do you see this? I'll take another example. They talk about pranas. We are talking about various systems. Say there are 5 pranas which has been mentioned.
Okay.
Right? So those pranas, for example, your digestive prana, digestive vayus, or they call it panchavayus, or something to reverse, something to excrete, something to build. So there are multiple vayus, and that vayus is basically expressing through the entire body. So your body is what? An instrument, physical body. And there is something called a subtle body, which is called Sukshma Sharira, which is expressing through your physical body. And there are 19 components of this Sukshma Sharira.
Right. So somewhere when you're talking, I think this whole analogy of like a light bulb has come into my head, right? Like if there is a light bulb, and electricity, there is electricity. When you switch on the bulb, it expresses, you can see the light. But if the light bulb is not working, does that mean the electricity is not there?
Beautiful. Yeah. Absolutely. This is a very good example that your bulb is your body.
Yeah.
And electricity is your prana or your subtle body, which is expressing through the bulb.
Right.
Absolutely. And another important difference between the gross body and the subtle body is this. When you call death, it simply belongs to the gross body. But the subtle body continues to exist even after the gross body has disintegrated.
Right.
This is very beautifully told again in Bhagavad Gita. Shri Krishna says that just as the wind carries the aroma, the fragrance of the flower, in the same way, the subtle body or the samskaras gets carried from one body to another.
Wow. So how does this subtle body interact with the gross body?
How does a software interact with a hardware? I mean, so it is as simple or as complicated as that. When you open your laptop, you are able to see so many images. That is your software working.
Right.
The software is interacting with the hardware. And the electricity is again interacting with both software and hardware to enable the entire process. Right? Similarly, when you look at it, there is a command center, which is your antahkarana, which basically takes the information from your sense organs, which is in form of various impressions, and there is a part of which that decides what has to be done, what did not has to be done. The decision gets taken, and that decision gets implemented by your prana shakti. There are so many nadis and chakras. There is an entire process which has been laid out in terms of how the prana executes through the body all the decision which is taken care by, or which is taken by your antakarana, which your mind. So there is a complete detailed process and note to show how does the subtle body interacts or makes a gross body function.
So you're saying that the hardware essentially is like our gross body.
Right.
The software is the Sukshma Sharira or the subtle body.
Yes.
And now you're saying that the prana is like the electricity which sort of empowers both.
Absolutely. See, if the electricity goes off,
these two can't connect.
They can't connect. The hardware is there and the software is there, but it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Simply, if prana leaves, the body is still lying there, right? You have all the golakams present. The eye is there, it can't see. The entire system is there, but it does not work because the prana has left the body. It is prana that connects your physical body and the antakarana or the mind.
So it's like when we speak about rebirth, is that like the software from one system? If my system is corrupt or it's dead, I can just take that software and put it into another hardware, right?
Beautiful, including all the memories as well.
Yeah.
Exactly, you can explain rebirth like that.
Yeah.
That the data is transferred from one hardware to another and the hardware is different.
Continuing.
Yes.
Right, somewhere that whole sense of continuity, and it gives you that sense of like, okay, death is not the end kind of.
No, it is not the end. The death is only to your body, as I'm saying. There are three parts of you. Sthula, Sukshma and Karana. Sthula Sharira gets disintegrated into its 5 elements, but your Sukshma Sharir and Karana Sharir, subtle body and the causal body, is not lost.
But that's the next question, I suppose. Then why? Because you said that the Sthula Sharira decays and disintegrates into the 5 elements that it was made from.
Right.
Why then does the Sukshma Sharira, why doesn't that decay and go back into the 5 elements that was made from?
Why do you ask me such difficult questions? But good you asked me, because this relates to law of karma and we are on the karmic topic itself. Okay, what does law of karma say? The law of karma says that the doer of the action has to reap the outcome,
right,
irrespective of death or no death. This is what law karma says. Now let me ask you, who is the doer of an action? Is the body doer of the action?
No, we just talked about how the body is the instrument.
Body is merely the instrument.
Right.
Is Atma doer of the action?
No. You said that Atma is there's no change and also.
Yes, Atma doesn't do anything.
Right.
It just is.
Yeah.
Atma is not the doer of the action. Is Prana doer of your action? Prana Shakti?
Is it? I don't know. I want to say no, but I don't know if that's the right answer.
So it basically executes whatever it gets from the command center. Where is the command center? The command center is your antahkarana. It is in your mind. So there is a doer which is sitting in the mind. Someone who is basically taking the decision. Right? So if the doer is at the level of antahkarana, at the level of mind in a simplistic manner, then it has to also take the outcome. So the antahkarana or the mind or the subtle body, to talk in a larger sense, does not disintegrate after the death of physical body. It will disintegrate in a very special scenario, and we will talk about the scenario later. But in given scenario, it does not disintegrate.
So this command center that you mentioned, the mind, since we are using that word, is it right to say that is Jiva?
We are very close to that right now, but not exactly. And I suggest let's take this up in our next episode to try and understand what is this command center, who is this Jiva, to whom the karma comes to, right? But for now, I think today we have kind of discussed quite a bit in terms of understanding our own self. Would you want to kind of recap what we have learned so far?
I think the biggest thing for me is this, the 3 bodies that you spoke about, right? About the gross body, the Sthula Sharira, the subtle body, which is the Sukshma Sharira. And you mentioned a third one, which we have not discussed.
Yeah, Karana Sharira, again, we can pick it up later.
Okay.
That's also...
Right. So it's also about how prana, the body is just the instrument
Yes.
through which the prana expresses.
Yes.
Right? And somewhere you've not answered that question which we started off with, which was where if you're all one, then who is doing and why is there individual karma? I think that was what we started off with.
Yes, we started off with that, and I promise you I will answer you this question. The point that I said that we'll go through three processes. The first, we'll try and understand the layers that we are made up of. We'll understand Jiva. We'll understand how Jiva is separate. Why does it make you feel that you are a separate entity in a non-dual universe before we answer that question? So we'll go step by step. Is that okay with you?
Yes.
Right? Maybe we'll take 1 or 2 episodes to come back to what you're asking.
So I feel even though you've not answered that, we've learned, like I have picked up so many smalls. This whole thing of the radio analogy was beautiful. Like just because the radio is broken or not on, does that mean that the music is not there?
Exactly. The point I'm just trying to say is, please let's have a very clear understanding that there are 3 bodies and each of them can exist independently of each other. Just because the physical body disintegrates doesn't mean that there are other bodies which has also disintegrated along with it. And those other bodies are of a slightly different dimension, asking for a scientific proof to prove it. Maybe a difficult, but it exists because it is there. You can experience it yourself. Great. And thank you so much. If you like this conversation and want to be a part of our workshops in the future, go ahead and put your details in the link which is mentioned in the description below.
And if you like our conversation, do share it with your friends, subscribe to our channel, and like and leave your valuable comments below. Thank you.